So today we are going to be looking at the bucket game with Max. This is a cooperative care game that allows you to give your dog some consent and some agency over the grooming and handling that we do with them. This makes them more likely to feel more positively about it and not have to restrain them and make it a really negative thing. So this is a great exercise to do with dogs who maybe struggle with having eardrops, having their nails trimmed, things like that. Now, it is a bit of a long process in teaching them it and building up to being able to handle them and do things like nail trimming, but it is worth it because it allows you to do it in a really stress-free way for you and for your animal. So all you're going to need for this is a bucket or a pot or a bowl with some treats inside and your dog. Now, the idea with the bucket game is that if your dog is looking at the bucket, they opt into the exercise and they're going to get a treat. So looks at the bucket, good, and feed. If he looks away from the bucket, that's a sign that he's feeling uncomfortable or doesn't want to continue or needs a break from whatever the activity that you're doing is. Good boy. So dog looks at bucket, opt in, dog looks away from bucket, opt out, but they aren't going to get any treats. So the treats motivate them to be involved in the game and proceed with the exercise, but they have a way to tell us when they don't want to continue. So the first thing that you need to teach your dog is that looking at the bucket is valuable. That's looking at me. Good. So all you're going to do for that is hold up your bucket, and anytime your dog looks at the bucket, you're going to mark them with good or yes and give them a treat. Good. 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 So now that he's done a few, I'm just going to move the bucket around. Good. 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 So Max has done a lot of work on looking at me to get rewards recently, so he, good, is a little bit confused about which game we're playing. So it is just taking, good, a little while for him to figure out that it's the bucket I want him to look at, not me. Good. Nice. So now that Max knows that looking at the bucket unlocks the good stuff and that we want him to be looking at the bucket, you would then build up the duration that he's looking at the bucket for. Good. So that was a good 3 seconds before marking him for it. Good. Nice. Now that he can look at the bucket for a sustained amount of time, please bear in mind that this will take longer with your dog. Max has done this before and I'm rushing through just so I can show you the whole process. Once your dog can look at the bucket, we want to be able to pop it on the floor in front of our dog so that we can then be handling them without having to hold the bucket in our hands. But obviously we don't want them to just help themselves to the treats. So we need to teach the dog that the bucket can be on the floor, they need to look at it, but they don't help themselves. So for that, all you're going to do is start to lower the bucket down further and further. If your dog's looking and not trying to steal, you mark and reward. If they get up to try and steal the bucket, you just lift it up out of the way. So let's just shift Max over here. Good. 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 So again, if your dog did try and steal, you just lift it out of the way. Good. Good. And you can see that Max is sitting there nicely, just looking at the bucket. Good. And earning himself some rewards. So from this stage, what we want to do is start adding in some little elements, good, of distraction for our dog. Our hands moving, namely, because the likelihood is we're going to need our hands to be moving around and probably touching them for any of the grooming or handling procedures that you want to do with your dog during the bucket game. So to start with, we're just going to add tiny elements of movement from my hands so that he knows that even if my hands are moving, he needs to remain looking at the bucket to earn those rewards. So I'm just going to good. 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 And the times that I've stopped and reset is when Max has looked at my hand or looked away from the bucket, good, rather than remaining looking at the bucket. We want to teach him that he needs to look at the bucket if he wants rewards, even when those things are happening. So now that I can move my hands around while Max looks at the bucket, I'm going to start moving my hands towards him. I'm not going to touch him just yet, but just towards. Good. Good. And again, as long as he stays looking at the bucket, he gets a good and he gets a reward. If he looks away, then I just reset and make it easier next time. Good. So I'm just going to go a little bit further so you can see what it looks like when he looks away from the bucket and I reset. Oh, you're too good at this. That was very good. We've played this game a bit before, so he knows the game. Good boy. Okay, so he's too good. If your dog does look away from the bucket though, you stop doing what you're doing. We've done this previously for eye drops and for nail clipping, so he's pretty solid, which is why he's not looking away. That's very good. Good boy. So yeah, if at any point your dog does look away, just take your hand away. They don't get a reward, but they do get to stop. If they look back at the bucket, you can then continue, but obviously make it easier because whatever you did was just a step too far for them. So from reaching towards, good. I would then start trying to touch them lightly. Good. Let's say we're going for some ear cleaning or ear drops, so I'm going to be trying to manipulate his ear once I've touched it a few times. Good. So he's okay with me touching it at the top. Good. Let's try the bottom, lovely. Good. 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 Very nice. Good boy. And from there you could add in your equipment, so your bottle of ear drops or your wipe for doing his ears, and add them into the moving towards steps as well. Obviously take it slow because you've added in something new, but you can see how he's allowing me to do what I need to do, even though he maybe doesn't like it, because touch has always been something that Max has struggled with, I think from a lack of being exposed to it as a puppy and throughout his 3 years before we had him. He's a lot better than he was, but obviously it's still not something he enjoys, and never will be. But this just allows us a really obvious, clear-cut way that we are going to be doing the things that you don't like. You can opt in and get some nice tasty things, or you can opt out, and that's absolutely fine. And what we did, sort of working around that, is before he could allow me to cut his nails in this way, we would use something really distracting like a licky mat. Obviously be careful if your dog is one that will snap or bite in those situations. Be safe, use your muzzle, things like that. Max isn't one that would bite for those things, he just would run away, or flail around, kind of jump around and not want to be restrained in any way, which we don't. We use a licky mat and we just do it while he's distracted, but the aim has always been to be able to do it with this kind of exercise, with him opting into having his nails trimmed, his ears cleaned, his teeth cleaned, in a way that is positive and stress-free. So go ahead and have a go at that. Please do send us videos, ask questions if you need to, and yeah, I hope that that has been helpful.